My friends, do you ever feel like you've gone so far down the mixing rabbit hole that you forgot the essentials of what actually goes into a mix? For example, notice how the audio is off from the video in this moment. That's delay. Or the fact that my voice sounds extremely tinny right now. That could be fixed with EQ. We worry about the latest tip that's posted online, like how to top-down mix, the best tuning software, or how to split bass. You've made all those videos though. Dude, that's besides the point. What I'm getting at is, these are the steps beyond understanding the fundamentals of a mix. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a fan of all the neat tips and tricks there are to advance your mixing. But what importance do any of those tricks mean if you can't do the simplest and most important thing in all of mixing? EQ. Actually, before you even touch EQ, you should take a look at your faders. Faders are the key to starting a mix before you even touch anything else, so you can make sure that you have a solid balance with the faders and panning. This is called creating a static mix. If you skip this step and feel as though your mix levels are all over the place and nothing sounds right, it's time to start fresh. Get your static mix right and start applying the second most important thing in all of mixing. That is, in fact, EQ. EQ is the single most important element in all of mixing. It's the makeup of the way we perceive every sound and is even the basis for other elements. Have you ever looked at an impulse of a reverb? Simply just an EQ curve. Or the knobs on a guitar amplifier? Also just different ways to EQ it. And it's one of the parts of mixing that is almost everywhere in our lives. You know, your car stereo has it. You can EQ the music on your cell phone. Even surround sound systems at home offer the option, and the main reason to reach for an EQ is to boost or lower specific frequencies across the spectrum to get the sound that's in your head coming out of the speaker. And of course, like any other type of mixing element, there are many ways to get the result. We're going to focus on the big four styles of EQ and show some examples. Subtractive EQ, additive EQ, broadband EQ, and surgical EQ. Subtractive EQ is the process of cutting out a frequency range by lowering the selected area, thus increasing your headroom. This is the most popular form between additive and subtractive because it gives you the ability to fix a problem. There's too much muddy low mids, it makes sense to cut the area that's giving you that issue rather than to boost the opposing areas. But I'll get to that in a minute. Let's show an example of subtractive EQ. Additive EQ is the process of boosting a frequency range by raising the selected area. The thought process behind additive EQ is when you want to enhance something that you already like the sound of. That's the main difference between the two. Technically, if there was a frequency area you liked, you could just lower all of the other areas, right? But that takes too many steps, and we're trying to keep things as simple as possible. One of the frowned upon thoughts of additive EQ in the past is that it's increasing something that wasn't there in the original source, so it makes more sense to do subtractive. The reality is, whatever gets you the fastest result is what makes the most sense. Let's take a listen to this example. Broadband EQ is the more musical form of EQing and starts with a wide cue. It's best to start with using this type of EQ before surgical because one of the issues that comes with surgical EQing is you'll always find more issues that don't necessarily need to be fixed. This became a problem with in-the-box mixing because software allowed you to get much narrower cues than hardware. And when you cut too much with a narrow cue, you tend to create more problems because even order harmonics will start to increase. You're just trading one of your issues for another one.
My heart's bleeding on the shelf and the damage has been done. I hope you had your fun. I hope you had your fun. Bleeding on the shelf and the damage has been done. I hope you had your fun. I hope you had your fun. My heart's bleeding on the shelf and the damage has been done. I hope you had your fun. I hope you had your fun.
Surgical EQ is the process of using a narrow Q band to cut out annoying ringing frequencies that might be ruining an otherwise perfect track. Nothing more to it than that, and the easiest way to get the most out of surgical EQing is to increase the gain of the Q and sweep around until you fixed it. Then you can wipe that ringing note out of existence.
I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream, me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew. I had a dream we could change the world. If it was me and you, we could start anew.
Now, if only there was a word for taking all of these facts and smashing them into a digestible piece of information. Wait, there is a word for that. Compression. And I've kind of been compressing my feelings to do a transition like that for a couple episodes, so just know that the kid is back. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, notification bell, and like button because my transition game is indeed so crazy. But yes, back to compression. This is the process of reducing dynamic range. In compression's simplest form, that's all it means. Simple and effective. When you're using compression, the goal is to bring the lowest and highest sound in your audio source close in volume. Think of when a vocalist goes from singing very quietly to loudly. Instead of having to automate, you can use a compressor to handle the transient peaks. Now, of course, there are other things you can do with compressors, like adding color from tube compressors, or even some grit from effect compressor like an 1176. But ultimately, the point is to not have random parts of a track jumping out or being too low. Now, remember this, there are types of compressors and then there are types of compression. We're gonna be focusing on types of compression, and if you need a breakdown of the types of compressors, make sure to watch my video that I did on this already, explaining everything. The types of compression are multiband compression, dynamic compression, limiting, sidechain compression, and parallel compression. I'll try to keep this part pretty sweet. Dynamic compression is the general type of compression we do with any standard VCA, FET, opto, or tube compressor. Multiband compression is the type of compression in which it only affects a specific frequency band that you've selected. Imagine having muddy low mids in a guitar once again, and you only want to affect that area with a compressor. It's great for things like that. Limiters allow you to bring the audio up, but has the benefit of not letting the peaks clip. The ratio for a limiter is at least 10:1. And everything above. Parallel compression is the combination of the dry audio signal with an extremely compressed copy of that signal running in parallel. By using this technique, you can get more punch because of the compressed signal, but the articulation and clarity of the original take is still there. Then you kind of want to blend those to taste. Next up is automation. Automation is the process of adjusting the volume of a track throughout a song. For example, if you felt like a chorus was not hitting hard enough, you might try automating the mix so that it raises 1 dB when it hits, so it feels more impactful. Using automation to change the volume of different elements throughout the song creates movement, like turning guitars up in a second verse or turning drums up during a bridge. Now on to our next point, delay. Delay is a time-based effect that takes the original signal, duplicates it, and plays it back at a determined time interval to create everything from a phaser to an echo-like effect. These are typically used as effects to liven up an audio source or sometimes even take the place of reverb. There's a few type of delays that you're typically gonna run into in a mix. Those would be slapback delay, ping pong delays, and modulated delays. Slapback is a delay that typically only has a single repeat. What makes slapback different than the other types of delays is you don't have to feel the need to lock it into a 16th or 32nd note. You can fool around with the milliseconds until it feels right. Ping pong delay is pretty popular because it adds some dimension to your mix. It typically will bounce the echoes from left to right like a ping pong ball, thus giving it its name. Modulated delays are the phase-based variety. This includes phasers, flangers, and chorus. The reason these are considered modulated is because the repeats are extremely close in time at a different frequency than the original source audio. Phasers and flangers will send that signal back to itself, which creates a phase shift. And without any more delay, we can talk about reverb, which is actually just multiple delays. If delay is just the sound of the first reflection point, reverb is the culmination of the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So to simplify it, reverb is the sound of an audio source being spread out in a specific environment. This is why we have room reverbs, hall reverbs, chamber reverbs, and the like. The overall point is to make it sound like what you recorded was done in a different space. So my friends, let's go over all of this one more time. Faders, panning, EQ, compression, automation, delay, and reverb. Yes, there are other things to do to a mix, but these are the building blocks to getting a solid mix going. If you can't make a solid mix with just these, it's time to go back to the drawing board. Do you feel like I missed anything? Do you create static mixes when you open a new project? Leave a comment below and I will chat with you fine people, like I always do. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time, and tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Till next time, I am out of here. Mic drop, except as engineers we know, I'd never really drop this thing, especially because I have like 5 guitars on the floor and I'm not even taking the chance this time. Catch you guys later.